This is a small NetApp HCI environment running two Kubernetes clusters. The smaller one, made of single node, is running the workload that we care about. Storage is provided by SolidFire that provides iSCSI block devices to Trident CSI, which is plugged into this cluster. If you look at the persistent volumes that are in use now, there is one workload, elasticsearch, that is using PVC 924 on SolidFire. That volume is volume ID 253. You can see under snapshots, it's got 0 snapshots at the moment. If we go to Cluster Explorer, we can find the namespace where we deployed Elasticsearch and the pods, and Quick Start ES default is the one that has created a volume claim and that was satisfied by Trident. You can see it right here. Now, to protect this workload, we can create a S3 object store such as storage grid, and then we can create a policy that consists of two components. One is snapshots that creates snapshots with Trident CSI and retains them locally, and the other one is export or backup of these snapshots and application metadata to cloud, which I'm enabling right here. If I do not set any custom settings, it will inherit the same settings as snapshots. But you could also say S3 is cheap, I want to retain longer, so you could set a longer retention schedule right there. Once this is created, I can wait for the schedule to kick in, or I can run once to set a baseline and make the first snapshot and export happen right away, which I will do right now. At this point, K10 will schedule a snapshot, and then it will dedupe and compress and upload data to StorageGrid as well. It takes about 10 seconds for this to start. It's begun. And as I mentioned, there will be two places where backups are stored. In this case, I selected a plan that stores locally as snapshots and uploads to StorageGrid. The duplication and compression is done by Kasten, so similar to Beam. And as I add this workload, my S3 utilization will increase. So far, I can see by application that so far I'm using only 100 kilobytes because only some job data, maybe application data, has been uploaded, but PV data will be uploaded a little bit later after it's backed up and compressed and deduped. Now, if we go back, you can see snapshots 0. Now, if you refresh, you can find that there is one snapshot, which is what was created by run once. When we kicked off that job, we have a snapshot for this volume. After that, the snapshot will be cloned, mounted by K10 temporary pods, which will copy data, dedupe, compress, and then upload to StorageGrid. One thing about storage classes, here I'm using SolidFire Silver as my default storage class, which has claim policy as retain. The disadvantage is that all volumes, as they get deleted, you have to delete them manually from Kubernetes. So it's a better idea to create maybe storage class that does not have volume retain feature, so that you don't have to deal with all these volumes piled up and then you have to remove them manually. You might also have over provision warnings and things like that. You might say, I'm going to delete all the volumes which do not have any snapshots, but that's not how it should be done. You should really look here, see which volumes have been released on Kubernetes, delete them there, and then come back and delete the same volumes in here. Again, it's better to create a storage policy and then only use the right storage class without those extra operations to keep them in check. This is our service, Elasticsearch. It's running, so we can see it's up and running, and now we can try to cause some damage to this application, maybe delete some service settings, persistent volumes, and things like that. Of course, at this point, we expect that the service should not be available. We will check this shortly. All right, as expected, it's down, and now we can perform a restore. Export has been done, so I know I can also choose to restore from a remote copy. When I go back to this application, click on restore, I have a choice to whether it's local snapshot or remote restore. If I pick remote restore, I can select restore data only, but since I've deleted a bunch of other stuff, including service, pods, and all these things, I will stick with the defaults and restore everything. When I click restore, Kasten will pull data from storage grid, rehydrate it, and restore application metadata as well as volume contents. It will not restore data to the same volume, so I can actually delete the old volume, but as I mentioned, do not do this here. You need to go to Kubernetes and then check that the volume has been released, remove it there, and then go back to SolidFire to actually delete it. We can see here that there's some network traffic coming in. This is because data is pulled from storage grid. There are some temporary containers running to restore. And once that is done, you can actually, as this is done, you can actually see that the volume has been released, the old one, and we can now remove it from Kubernetes and then also from SolidFire. In the meantime, this restore job takes about 2 minutes. I don't have a lot of data, maybe a few megabytes. So in about 2 minutes, all the services, stateful sets, and everything has been restored. If I refresh my application, I can log in again with the same username and password, which means my data that was customized after I deployed it is correct, and the service is up and running. So this job takes about 2 minutes on this cluster, which is quite small and doesn't have a lot of resources. Even SolidFire that you can see here is actually a virtual machine. Now, the data has been restored to a new volume, and new volume has no snapshots, of course, because the protection job has not been run. What I can do again is run it once to create the baseline restore snapshot, and after that, if I refresh my screen, I can see here that there is one snapshot that has been created just like previously, so I have a new baseline, and if I need to restore, I can restore from a local copy. I mentioned that you can create different retention schedules and backup for local snapshots and remote backup. Now you can see here that these snapshots are created without including them in snapshot replication, and they are set to be kept forever, but actually Kasten does delete them, so you should not change this like I'm doing it here. But you might, in some cases maybe enable replication, but I would suggest to not really touch Kasten snapshots. If you need those, set your own snapshots and replication.